So today we're going to connect what we've already done with the actual level 1 and level 2 and actually starting to build proof in proof format. So we've been talking about the different pieces and components of the proof, but we haven't actually written a proof or put it in proof form. So here's what we have done so far. We've taken a problem similar to this and we've given additional reasoning. We've given criteria and a congruency statement. So for example, we would say for this problem, we would mark the angles here. This is a bow tie look, so we'd mark those angles. And we would say our additional reason is the vertical angles theorem. Then looking at the picture here, I would have side, angle, side for my criteria. Because I have a set of sides, I have a set of sides, and I have the angle in between them. For my congruency statement, the first triangle starts at V and goes to Y. So my second triangle, don't forget the triangle marking, I'm going to start at the end of this double tick mark, so I'm going to start at X, so X should be your first letter, on to W, and then into Z. Okay, that's what we have already done. What we're going to do is we're going to take that and put it in the traditional proof format. Okay, so let's practice that one more time. And when we put this in the traditional format, you are not going to see today any definition of. So we're just looking for vertical and reflexive. Okay. So on this picture, this has the common side, which would be the reflexive. So my additional congruency piece would be this reflexive right here in the middle. And then over here, I would say reflexive property. For my criteria, I have a set of sides, a set of sides, and I have the angle in between them. Then for my congruency statement, I started at L and went to P. So on the other side, I'm going to start at N and go into P and then up to M. Okay, so that's what we've been doing. So I gave you a glimpse at where we were, and now we're going to take those two proofs that we just did and put them into our new format. Okay, so underneath each one of those, you'll see this picture here. So we've got 3 big boxes, and then those all lead into one small box. So these 3 boxes are the 1, 2, 3 things that you need to be able to say that my triangles are congruent by, for example, side, side, side. If I was using side, 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 I would need a set of sides up here. I would need a set of sides and a set of sides, and that's how I get side, side, side. Okay, so that kind of just falls into or flows into what we have been doing. Okay, so in the first box, so up at the top you'll see our given statements. All right, so our very first step is to take our given statements and put one statement per box. So instead of being on the picture, they're going to be written out for us. So that's one of the biggest differences, is it's going to be written out versus being on the picture. So the first one, we're going to go ahead and mark this on the picture, YZ, so YZ is this first one, is congruent to WZ. I'm going to mark that in the picture, and every time we marked something, we had to write why we were able to mark it. Well, today you're also going to write out what you actually marked. So that first thing will go into the first box, and why were we able to write that? That set of sides was written because it was in the given statement. Now you are not going to actually write this side on yours. I'm just showing you that we have a side available to us. Okay. Now there is a second thing here in the given statement. When we mark that in the picture here, when you mark it on the picture, it must be written. So what you marked must be written, and why you can write that must also be written. So that's another set of sides, and it's also from the given statement. Okay, now this third box. This third box is reserved for if you need an extra piece. So something wasn't provided to you in the given, we're going to look for a reflexive or vertical. Well, we already determined that I have a pair of vertical angles. So I mark those in the picture, and because I mark it, I have to write that those angles are congruent, and I have to say why. Vertical angles theorem. So up here you can see what you have. I have two sides and an angle. That does not necessarily mean that you automatically come down here and write side, side, angle, because that's not a possibility. What that tells you is what amount of each you should have in the final answer. So I should have two S's and an A. And the A happens to be in between my two sides. So when I say that my triangles are congruent, I use side, angle, side. And this statement right here for us, right now where we're at, is going to be this exact same statement as where it says prove. Okay? So you might still be confused. Of course you're still confused because that was the very first time we have ever done anything like that. But we're going to do that with the second set of triangles as well. Okay, so in my second set of triangles, we'll bring back what we already said we were going to do. But what you'll notice is, instead of having the pictures marked already, you're given this statement with things that are congruent. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to put each one of these things both on the picture and in a box, okay, individually. So let's first start by putting MPL congruent to MPN on the picture. So that is those angles right there. After you put it on the picture, you must write it in a box and say why you're able to write that pair of angles. Okay, that was in the given statement. So the reason that I'm able to write that down is because it was given to me. Okay, now we go to the second piece of the given statement, which is LP congruent to NP. So that piece is going to go both on the picture and into the proof. So it goes on the picture. Once you draw it on the picture, what you drew on the picture must go in a box, and why. So this time we have a side marking by the given statement. So far we have an angle and a side. Then what we already said, we looked at this problem already based on what was given to us, and we said we would do a reflexive property. Okay, so the next thing is to go ahead and mark that reflexive property. If you mark it, you must write it. So what do I write when I write the reflexive property? That is that segment MP is congruent to itself, which is another set of sides, by the reflexive property. Okay, I already said that this would be side angle side, but make sure you're not just taking the letters from up top here and putting them down into the reasoning for the triangles congruent. Okay, you do have to look at the picture and see what order the letters should be in. Okay, last box here, we're going to take this prove statement. We have enough. We have our three things. So I can say that my triangles are congruent by, and we already determined that this is going to be the side angle side postulate. Okay. Go ahead and turn your page. We have some ideas about proof that we're going to fill out here. So on the left side, we're in the left box. Mathematicians, like we are expected to justify their work. One process used for this is called proof. So what we are doing is we are doing proofs. There are many different formats and types of proof, but we are just going to be doing flowchart and 2-column proofs. Okay, what we just did is considered a flowchart proof, and then we will transition into doing 2-column proofs. The goal is to support the idea with a complete and very specific explanation. Okay. Continuing on there, so in that same box, we're going to talk about the different parts of the proof. The very first thing you have is the given statements. So we saw that it said given, and then it had some statements. Those are information that we are told at the beginning of the proof. It's where we start from. Then you have the prove statement. That prove statement is just the goal of the proof. That's where I want to end up. Then we have statements that we are making. Okay, so the statements we make is the information that is, number one, true. It has to be true, and it's also helpful towards the goal. So if I make a statement, well, that's true, but it doesn't help me with anything, we don't want to put that in the actual statement. Then we have reasons. The reasons is what you write underneath the statements that you make to explain why those statements are true. So we might say something like MP is congruent to MP. That's my statement. And the reason, reflexive, is my justification. Okay, so over on the right side, you'll see a picture kind of like this. And what you'll see at the top is something that we're going to be adding on. So don't worry about that part yet necessarily. But what you noticed is that we didn't do anything with M is a midpoint or CD bisects this angle or something like that. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. So that stuff is going to go up top in those kind of dashed circles. So you can kind of make yourself a box all the way across because we're going to kind of write down what each part of this is for. Okay, so this top part, these are the given information only if the given information require extra knowledge. For example, midpoint or bisectors or isosceles. And then underneath that would be given. Okay, so since those are the given statements, those 3 blanks, if you write anything in those circles, it's going to be given. So the blanks underneath are the reasons that explain. So given or definitional of midpoint or vertical angles theorem. However, those 3 blanks should be nothing other than given. Below here, the givens can go here if they don't have a vocabulary word. In our first proofs, these statements are going to be about congruent segments or angles. And then the reasons, again, go underneath. The final box, the final piece here, this is where the prove statement is always going to go for us right now, and it is our goal, and it means that we have met our goal and that we are done. And don't forget that there will be a reason underneath that as well. Okay, now let's jump into the homework for tonight. Our homework is homework 22 on GoFormative, and we're just going to try to fill in these blanks. Remember, no definition of midpoint, no definition of bisects, just given, and either vertical or reflexive.